Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our third episode of our Maintaining Adaptive Capacity series. My name is Shane McNally, Marketing Specialist here at R3 Continuum, and joining us today, also from R3 Continuum, is our Vice President of Clinical Crisis Response, Jeff Gorder. Thank you for being with us this morning. In today's episode, we'll be discussing virtual environment fatigue and its impact on organizational leadership and the work environment in general. So with that, let's get it started. And we'll start with the first question. What is virtual environment fatigue?
Well, it's a fascinating new circumstance, because when the entire nation had to shelter in place, had to move to a remote work environment, when we had to pull back and self-quarantine, isolate in the face of the pandemic, and that was absolutely the right thing to do and the appropriate response in order to flatten the curve and on behalf of just overall safety for everybody involved. And so what generated out of that almost overnight was what became known as, in a generic sense, Zoom meetings, or Zoom. Zoom became sort of the Kleenex of video enhanced modalities, and then there are a variety of them. Of course, there's WebEx and On24 and Google Meet and Teams, and there's a variety of them. But what has kind of entered the common parlance is the concept virtual environment fatigue, or what is sometimes called Zoom fatigue. The idea that while it might seem minor, so many business leaders are saying, another Zoom meeting, another virtual meeting. I've got to pull together. Oh my goodness, which platform are we using now? Who's calling for it? What strategies do I have to use to set this? And it is emotionally and physically draining in a way that other meetings that we're accustomed to are not. That it takes a different kind of energy to remain engaged, to be able to really truly connect, to reach through that screen and say, I want to communicate the importance of this. And it takes more than if I were doing so across the table in the conference room with another employee or another business leader or a customer. You know, being able to be face to face has a different feeling, a different vibe. And you have access to all of the nonverbal communications that emphasize and punctuate your message. When it's reduced to a screen, suddenly I find myself having to project in a way that seems unusual to me. I have to be more intense. I have to speak in a way to make sure that I'm not that my volume is not falling off inadvertently, because I'm relying on the technological adaptation. And so it's physically and emotionally draining in a way that traditional face-to-face meetings aren't. It's also true that a secondary drain are all of the technological glitches, the kind of things that are unexpected, the distractions that occur. I mean, think about the last time you had a serious and substantive meeting at your workplace in the boardroom. How many small children or pets wandered through in the middle of that meeting? Likely none. But the reality is that has become almost a common occurrence in Zoom meetings and in virtually enhanced environments. And, you know, so often we'll hear the dog barking, the child walks through, the phone rings. That's when the lawn service or the garbage truck chooses to come by and creates that ambient noise that otherwise you would have been able to control in your traditional work environment. And so we have, I think we've all developed a camaraderie, a sort of understandable patience with that, because we've all been there. We've all had our own version of that. We've all found ways in which the meeting is unexpectedly disrupted, but that too is emotionally draining. It sets you off your cadence. your pace is not the same. You got to make up for it. You've got to adapt to it. And so that too is a way that easily drains you when you're trying to conduct the normal challenges of business. And then finally, I think many leaders, what makes them effective at being leaders is that they are people persons. They get energy from being in the physical proximity of their very talented teams. They hired these people for that reason, that together we are stronger. There is that synergy, that energy, that creativity that comes when we're all in the same room and we're just bouncing ideas back and we're putting it on the whiteboard and, things are really clicking. We've all had that experience when you're in a physical group and you are more together than you are the individual parts, that there is something energizing about that. Now, when I have to rely on a video screen to make that connection, it just takes more energy. It's harder to do. And quite frankly, I miss my work family. I miss being able to walk down the hall and check in with this department, being able to sit in the break room and catch up with the personal events of life that go into filling our bank. We are now acutely aware of something that we had previously simply taken for granted, that being together, being part of a team, feeling that I belong, that I am part of something, was in and of itself energizing. Those conversations that didn't necessarily have a hard and fast business goal, but were simply about people encountering people, that work family concept that was sustaining and made my day enjoyable. And that was an exciting part of, I looked forward to seeing people whom I respect and who I enjoy spending time with. Now I have to schedule it, and it has to be through a video enhanced means. And it's, while useful, just simply not quite the same thing.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm sure everybody can, has seen one of all three of these. Going to get coffee now, instead of talking to my fellow employees, I'm talking to my cat, and it's just not the same. So with that, what would be some identifiers that a leader or the organization is experiencing virtual environment fatigue?
Well, it's an interesting thing. Again, while many organizations had already been using virtual platforms, I think it would be fair to say that very few of us have had to use it and rely on it to the extent that the pandemic has forced us to. And so any modality that we are forced to use that is not one that we had previously already developed policies, procedures, plans around, something that is driven by necessity of the moment, is an incredibly useful tool. We appreciate the fact that in the midst of this disconnection has come a tool that has allowed us to continue to operate and stay connected with our team. But again, it's human nature that anything I am forced to do, I can develop a resentment towards. Do I have to have another Zoom meeting? Really? Another scheduled meeting? Who's organizing this one? Who's facilitating this one? You come to resent the tool that has allowed you to function in a way that, quite frankly, none of us wanted to. I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, we had hoped we'd be done with it by now. We had hoped we'd be past this. The fact that we continue to have to rely on a virtual platform like Zoom or others to connect is discouraging, to say the least, disconcerting in a way that many of us are surprised by, and not suggesting an alternative, because I think we have come to rely on it and need it to get the job done. But it's true that it's exhausting. And so again, effective leaders are able to be aware of that in themselves, to recognize that many of their team, their leadership team, as well as their workforce team, may be experiencing that same level of concern and fatigue around Zoom meetings. And I think one of the key ways of diffusing it is simply to acknowledge it, simply admit it, be able to say, I know all of us are sick of Zoom meetings right now, but it is allowing us to get the job done, to stay focused on our mission, to be productive in ways that otherwise we wouldn't be able to. So simply acknowledging the reality of it drains a lot of the additional emotional challenge that would otherwise, if it just festers unacknowledged, can distract us from getting the job done.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Something I would not have even thought of. One more question for you on this. What is the impact on the work environment when virtual environment fatigue is present?
So yeah, as we kind of referenced just before, that recognizing that any tool overused, any tool relied upon to that degree can create stresses and can potentially minimize the value of that tool. So I think that while Zoom meetings are absolutely fantastic, are there some other ways that your teams can stay connected to foster that sense of social connection, to capitalize on the strength of that work family? So are there some things, is there an approved messaging board where folks are able to let's say the challenge this week is take a picture of one stress reducing technique you've been relying on, and everybody is posting their pictures of what they do. You mentioned your cat. Everybody post a picture of your pet doing something funny, or creating a meme around a picture of your pet. Remaining connected in ways that aren't sort of through that mechanistic environment of a Zoom meeting, but finding ways to stay connected and communicating in creative ways, in ways that aren't necessarily with a discrete business outcome, but more about tapping into the strength of the work family at a time when we all need it most.
Absolutely. Those are some great strategies there. If a leader needs support in maintaining their adaptive capacity, what resources are generally available?
At R3, we offer a range of services that we feel are uniquely calibrated to support the needs of businesses and business leaders during this time of pandemic. Evaluations is certainly one way for leaders to be able to understand and assess the well-being and functioning of their teams, both the workforce and the leadership team. One way, an effective way of facilitating that group cohesion and tapping into the strength of the work family is through discrete crisis response services. Again, those could be virtual, they can be telephonic, they can be on-site. If your workforce has returned to a discrete location, being able to have trained counselors who are able to help facilitate those discussions, create environments in which people are able to share again with each other and provide that mutual support that for many of us has been absent lo these many months. And so I think crisis response is particularly effective at being able to reconnect individuals as they return to work. Executive optimization provides that focused consultation for executives and leadership as they are developing these strategies. And of course, protective service is being able to ensure the safety of your workforce as they return to operations. There are many challenges unexpected as we have seen over these months, and making sure that I'm protecting the safety of my workforce is job one.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything with me today. Virtual environment fatigue, we now know how it can be identified and solutions for how leaders can identify and improve this within their organizations. It's something that's very real and very relevant right now, I think, for a lot of people. To obtain more information on how you can maintain adaptive capacity, view our additional episodes of this series, visit our website at r3c.com/adaptive capacity. Next week, our episode for maintaining adaptive capacity will be on compassion fatigue. Be sure to stop by our LinkedIn page and check it out, or check out our website, r3c.com/adaptive capacity. If you are in need of any support during these challenging times, R3 Continuum can help. Connect with us. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.